Hello, today we are going to install and use Ubuntu 24.04 beta and Fedora Linux 42 beta. So these are the default desktop image versus workstation, which use the GNOME desktop. I'm going to work side by side. The left half of the screen is going to be Ubuntu 25.04 and the right half of the screen is going to be Fedora 42. So let's start by downloading the images. I searched on Google for Ubuntu 24.04, 25.04 beta and Fedora. This is the ISO file that we need to install Ubuntu, the desktop image. And for Fedora, I have opened this link, takes me to the official website fedoraproject.org. At the top right corner, there's the link Fedora Linux 42 beta. And from this article, we go to Fedora Workstation 42 beta. In here, we download the x86-64 ISO, which is this file. I have downloaded both files. Let's now create Virt Manager QEMU virtual machines. File, new virtual machine. First, we're going to do the Ubuntu. So Ubuntu 25.04 beta desktop AMD 64 ISO. Let's choose a template. Ubuntu 24.10. Let's go with 8 and 8. 200. Ubuntu 25.04. No need to customize, finish. While that's working, we're going to create the second virtual machine. "30 seconds timeout" is going to boot inside the ISO for Ubuntu, where we will be able to run in live CD mode, which is try, or choose the Ubuntu installer, which is the option install Ubuntu. Okay, new virtual machine. Forward, browse, Fedora Workstation Live 42 Beta 1.4 x86-64 ISO, choose volume. Fedora 40 as the virtual machine template, forward 8 and 8. 200. Fedora 42. And finish. Okay, in here there's just 10 seconds timeout. It's going to test the ISO and then start in live CD mode the Fedora ISO. Checking the ISO is really fast, so you can not skip this step. It's okay. It's going to take less than 2 minutes. Okay, Ubuntu has started the installer wizard, which is okay. We want to actually install to the hard disk. The splash screen for Fedora is going to boot from the ISO in live CD mode. The Fedora ISO has booted in live CD mode inside of GNOME, the GNOME shell. A first run wizard has started. Welcome to Fedora. In here we have the option to start the installer wizard, which let's actually do, install Fedora. The installer is starting. It's a new type of installer, or there's a new theming. So now that the two virtual machines are at similar points, which is the start of the installer wizard, let's go through them. English language, English United States, keyboard US. I pressed next twice. No accessibility. And keyboard layout US. We're at partitioning in Fedora Linux 42. Connect to the internet wired connection next on Ubuntu. Install Ubuntu. Interactive installation. Default selection. It's a virtual machine. I will not need additional drivers, so we can just skip these two checkboxes, install third-party software, and download additional media format support. So I'm going to go next here. And now we're at similar pages in the installer wizard. Erase disk and install Ubuntu versus use entire disk. Let's go with next and next. The installer page for encryption. I do not want to encrypt anything. It's a virtual machine. It's not on a laptop. It's on a desktop computer. It's not moving anywhere. So no encryption versus unchecked the checkbox encrypt my data. Next. Next. Let's review. So it's going to use btrfs Fedora Linux 42 /subvolume /home subvolume. There's a /boot ext4 partition, 1 GB, really small. And erase data and install. And now let's create the Linux user account on Ubuntu. Ubuntu 2504. Password. Require my password to log in. I'm not using Microsoft Active Directory. New York. And it's going to use a partition for / formatted as ext4. Next. And now installing has started. So partitioning, creating the partition table, creating partitions, formatting partitions, copying the files that exist on the ISO onto the virtual hard disk. And it's also going to install some packages from the online Ubuntu repositories. I'm not sure what this bug is. If I hover with the bug, the console disappears. Virtual terminal. The button is this one at the bottom right corner, where you can switch between a slideshow of features versus a virtual terminal with progress. Okay, let's see what the Fedora installer is doing. Storage configuration, software installation in progress. It's installing software. Hopefully it's just unpacking whatever is on the ISO. Hopefully it's not installing RPMs one by one from either the ISO or straight from the online repositories from Fedora 42. Okay, this rsync step is the one where files from the Ubuntu ISO get copied as they are to the virtual hard disk. Okay, 88% progress on installing software for Fedora 42. I'm not sure what the percentage is for Ubuntu installer. Software installation completed for Fedora 42. It's installing the grub bootloader, creating the initial RAM disk. Ubuntu has finished copying files from the ISO to the virtual hard disk. Now it's installing additional packages from the Ubuntu archives. It looks similar to a apt update, apt upgrade. The latest Linux kernel, the hardware enablement, image for 2404. I'm not sure what's that about. Okay, the Fedora installer has finished editing the bootloader, and now it's generated the initial RAM FS, so it's still at the bootloader phase. And the Fedora installer has finished. The Ubuntu installer is at the bootloader grub steps, initial RAM and disk. It's installing W British. I'm not sure what's doing. The Ubuntu installer is running an apt upgrade. There's more than 100 packages that can be upgraded. I'm not sure why it's doing that. It should just install whatever is on the ISO and that's it. It's up to me if I want to install the latest updates once I reboot in the freshly installed operating system. By the fact that the Ubuntu beta installer forces an apt upgrade, the installations will be stabler. If there's important issues that are being fixed after the time that the Ubuntu 25.04 beta installation media is released, then people that install Ubuntu 25.04 after the fix has been created for those issues and new deb files have been published into the official repositories, then the people that install Ubuntu 25.04 will not be affected by those issues. So similar to a support for zero-day patches. Okay, and we're at the same spot in the installer wizard, which is the final install wizard page, the one that allows you to restart the computer or finish the installer. Let's go with restart now and exit to live desktop and reboot from here. How do we reboot? Restart. Restart. And similarly, from the GNOME desktop, top right corner, restart and restart. Different theming for GNOME desktop. Remove the installation medium, then press enter. And now both machines are starting and the ISO should not be present in the CD-ROM drive. Let's prove that. SATA CD-ROM empty for the Fedora 42 virtual machine. And SATA CD-ROM empty for Ubuntu 2504. The Fedora 42 virtual machine starts with a welcome screen, whereas Ubuntu 2504 takes us to the GDM GNOME Desktop Manager, where we need to enter a user, choose a user and password. And we're logged in. And now a first run wizard is being started in Ubuntu 2504. Let's see the first run wizard from Fedora. So this is similar to the OEM installer. It asks me the language of this user, which is English, keyboard of this user, US, allow apps. No. Time zone. Please select a city. New York. You can use the search box. Third-party repositories. Let's see exactly what that means. What's the exact list? So there's a package, Fedora Workstation repositories. Okay, so let's see what we have. We have a flat pack remote, flat hub, which is not filtered because we're on Fedora 42. So everything from flathub.org. That's a good selection. Google Chrome. I'm not sure where from. PyCharm, the integrated development environment for Python. From the RPM Fusion third-party RPM repository, the NVIDIA GPU hardware drivers, and Steam, the gaming app store. So I don't see why I would not enable this. Sounds okay. Enable. Next. So it's indeed similar to the OEM installer because I did not provide a name and password for my Linux user. The special user that's created first and has sudo powers. administrator. Enterprise login is probably going to be something similar to the offering from Ubuntu for Microsoft Active Directory. Password. Start using Fedora Linux. And now we're at the first run wizard inside GNOME because we have logged in for the first time into the GNOME Wayland session as the user administrator on Fedora 42. Okay, let's do the similar things for the Ubuntu machine. So we're already logged into the Wayland session GNOME shell for the user administrator in Ubuntu 2504. Let's see view release notes. This is probably Firefox installed from Snap, from the Ubuntu Snap Store. This is a discourse page similar to a wiki page. It's work in progress. It still has empty bullet points. Okay, I have already read this page. Welcome. System program problem detected. Okay, that was a pop-up wizard, a pop-up window. Let's go next. Share system data. Yeah, we can do that. Get started with more applications. Open the App Center, which is mostly for installing snaps. I'm not sure if you can install the packages from this App Center. It's pinned to the main panel of GNOME desktop in Ubuntu 2504. Okay, let's see the similar tour in Fedora 42. Take tour. Let's begin. Unfortunately, in Fedora, the branding is very various. There's Fedora Linux 42, Fedora Linux 42 Workstation Edition, pre-release. There's at least 10 different strings that contain the correct name of the operating system. The overview shows all your apps. Press the Windows key. I'm not going to do that. Powerful search inside the here you can just type. No need to click in here. Workspaces are similar to virtual desktops. 3-finger gestures on a touchpad. I don't have a touchpad. That's it. The final page of the first run wizard inside the GNOME session. Okay, let's continue the wizard in Ubuntu. We're on the final page. We go finish. Let's see the details. The solver produced a worse result. Yeah, you might get this when you use apt, the command line. It's pre-release software. It's beta versions for both Ubuntu 25.04 and Fedora 42. Okay, and we were inside the App Store. Let's go to the same spot in Fedora 42, which is this guy, software, the App Store for Fedora 42. Let's make these two visible at the same time. The two applications. Okay, so this is the upstream vanilla GNOME App Store, which is called Software or GNOME Software. And this is a downstream of GNOME Software, if I remember correctly. It's called App Center. GitHub. Nope, it's a totally different graphical user interface application. It's not using GTK4 and Adwaita, it's using Flutter as the graphical user interface toolkit. At some point in the past, the App Store in Ubuntu used to be a fork, a downstream of GNOME software, but then that got rewritten in Flutter. Language is Dart 97%. Okay. Let's install some of the software that would be nice to have. Visual Studio Code. Where is the search button? This guy. What can we install from Flatpak? I don't know. So these are some of the software packages that are available in FlatHub. Created by the KDE community. No, it's also using the Fedora default RPM repositories, not only FlatHub. Okay, this is a a graphical user interface text editor. In this case, inside the App Store in Fedora, it's available from 3 different sources. The Flat Hub, the default RPM repositories from Fedora, and also from this thing, which is the Flatpak remote from Fedora Linux. So not FlatHub, don't confuse this thing with FlatHub, but a different thing that's very Fedora specific, a special Flatpak remote from Fedora Linux, which personally I would not use. So be very careful when you start installing software. Make sure it's being installed from the sources that you prefer. Kate, I would actually probably install it from Fedora Linux RPM packages. Okay, let's see what else is available. We have updates available. Maybe the installer did not install all of the updates yet. Requires a restart. So this is the tab with updates. It's mostly RPM packages that are available in the default Fedora repositories and are newer than the one that were present on the installer ISO. I see here fonts. I see some graphical user interface applications and this catch-all category which says system updates, which is for components which are more low level, such as the kernel and libraries. Let's see if updating actually works. I guess this is the button to click on, so download. Let's see if we can install updates somehow in graphical user interface mode from the App Center. Check for updates. I guess it's only for the App Center in Ubuntu is only for snaps from what I see in here. Because I can see only snap packages being available. Visual Studio Code, the one that I have installed, and the rest are either dependencies of Visual Studio Code or have been pre-installed by the Ubuntu installer, such as Firefox. Okay, do we see more progress? More detailed progress. How do we do that? In Fedora GNOME software. The updater from GNOME software suggests that I want to restart the system. Maybe it's applying some of the updates after the reboot. So let's go do that, restart and update. The Ubuntu App Center has this checkbox for show system snaps. That also shows Core 20 and Core 22. Let's allow the reinstall. The restart of Fedora 42. The timeout in grub is very small, which is correct. It should be under 2 seconds. This might be the offline updates, the updates being applied before the full restart finishes. So as part as the startup of phase of the computer. Okay, let's see how we can open Visual Studio Code. How do we do that? Where are the installed applications? Okay, so I have clicked on somewhere on this card, but you need to click on the name or on the icon of the application to go to the page of this app in App Center. Okay, so this comes from the upstream from Microsoft. Let's see what are the options. Uninstall and open. Let's open. Mark done. Show welcome page. And close. Okay, let's install some additional software. Let's install Chromium. There's no Google Chrome available, there's Chromium. Not from Google upstream, but from Canonical the downstream. Multiple versions available. Install. The package Chromium is being downloaded from the Snap Store, which is an Ubuntu App Store, online App Store, for the Snap packages. I'm not sure if the screenshots are correct, if they actually use the theme that's used in Ubuntu 25.04 for Google, for Chromium. I wanted to select some text in here, and instead I have clicked and dragged, and now the entire page is moving. So this would be a feature that you want on mobile phones, scrolling with your finger. Okay, let's see if the application has finished installing. Yes, let's open it. Let's compare this thing to the screenshot. New incognito tab. Yeah, it resembles the correct screenshot. So the text in the tab is wrong, says new tab instead of new incognito tab. There's this down arrow is missing in the screenshot. This scroll bar is not themed correctly in the screenshot. It's light gray versus dark gray. And this screenshot, yeah, it's missing the down arrow. Pretty similar. The scroll bar probably is not using the same theme. The window title bar, window decoration is probably not the exact same. Okay, still installing updates during the computer startup. I'm not sure if this is what people want, to have the computer not functioning for more than 10 minutes for very long startup times during which you cannot actually use your computer. But I guess this is safer for the users of the operating system because they don't have applications that are using files from packages that are just being upgraded. It's still up for debate if restarting the computer in order to install updates is better than what we had previously in GNU Linux desktop operating systems, which is you just install updates and it's after all of the RPM deb packages get installed, it's just optional for you to restart. But restarting is just mostly in order to apply the new Linux kernel or to restart some of the long-lived services and processes such that they start using the correct new files, such as the new time zone data. Whereas the new alternative, which is the packages get installed while the computer is starting, this, as you see, it's making the computer not usable for more than 10 minutes. And this is a really fast computer. NVMe, who knows what happens on a really slow 5000 RPM spinning hard disk. And maybe it's also not that fail-safe. Maybe something happens during installing updates and you will never be able to put inside the GNOME session without reinstalling the operating system from scratch. Yay, GDM, GNOME Desktop Manager. Okay, let's see what it says. So it notified me that it has installed updates. Where is that notification? On the middle of the top main panel, where the calendar is. These are the notifications, software updates installed. Let's read the notification. It opens with the software application, shows me the list of packages that have been just updated. In a similar fashion to the way these packages have been presented to me before installing. So some graphical user interface applications are presented in this list, some fonts, and these category system updates. Package manager, DNF. Apparently evolution is installed or parts of it. Many libraries. And in general, RPM updates from the last 10 days. In installed tab, there's categories for applications, graphical user interface applications probably, and system apps, whatever that is. The settings is a system app. And add-ons, whatever that is. English 1, English 2. Yeah, whenever instead of presenting the full correct RPM package name, you're presenting something else like icons, and you're trying to say that RPM is not really an RPM but a graphical user interface application, the mapping is totally lossy. You lose context, you don't really know what's being presented. You get strange things like English twice with a localization flag. You get these interesting splits between add-ons versus system apps, and then you're hiding a ton of other RPM packages in who knows where. There's 1000 more RPM packages installed on this computer than this very short list. So why is this list this short? Similarly to the way we installed from the Snap Store on Ubuntu 25.04 two applications, Chromium and Visual Studio Code, let's see how we can install similar applications on Fedora 42 beta. So I'm in the App Store, GNOME Software, I go search, and let's search for Chrome. And I find Google Chrome, not Chromium. There's also Chromium, but there's the Google Chrome. Only available from FlatHub because this is actually binary files from Google themselves. The FlatHub package is not created by Google, but inside that FlatHub package, it's the content of a deb file that's actually created by Google themselves. Let's see how that works. So it's available from FlatHub, not open source software, not built from source. I have opened in a web browser, which is Mozilla Firefox, the online website for FlatHub. In here we search for the same thing, which is Chrome. We find the application Google Chrome. It says it's unverified. And in this tab where it says links, we can see that there's this thing, manifest github.com/flathub/chrome.google/chrome. This is a GitHub repository that's used in order to create the FlatHub package that's served via flathub.org. Let's look in here what's available. There's the Flatpak manifest, the file ending with YAML extension. That downloads something which is Google Chrome stable deb file for x86-64, ARM64. This is the official Google deb package for Ubuntu 22.04. There's an official Google repository, such that when you do apt update, apt upgrade on Ubuntu, the latest version of Google Chrome is being installed. So this deb package, which is pretty large, is being downloaded. Some additional files are being added. This the deb file is being extracted, and everything else is then being repackaged as a flat pack binary package. These are the permissions that are being offered to this Flatpak: printing, networking, /etc, the users directories, downloads, documents, music, etc. Flatpak, dbus, endpoints. Okay, so now we know that this web browser, 99% of the files are binary coming from the upstream from Google. There's some additional files like a desktop file, and then everything is packaged up as a Flatpak served at flathub.org, but the packaging is not being done by Google Chrome, but by a third party. So between the binaries that are offered by Google Chrome and you installing this Flatpak on your computer, there's an intermediary. So let's install it. And then we also installed on Ubuntu 25.04 Visual Studio Code. So let's see if that's available. So we have Visual Studio Code. I'm not sure why this thing is spinning instead of showing me the icon and doing the spinning in the background. Okay, we have more options. There's Visual Studio Code, there's Code OSS, and a third one, which is VS Codium, which I don't find in here. This guy. From the same Git repositories from Microsoft, but in there's open source parts, and then Microsoft adds secret sauce to create the Microsoft official binaries, which are probably contained into this Flatpak binary package served from FlatHub. So it's Visual Studio Code can, in this case, on Fedora 42 be installed just from FlatHub because Fedora default RPM packages are offering open source software and also RPM packages that are not patent encumbered, such as video codecs. And the Fedora 42 remote for Flatpak also does not contain proprietary software, and it's just the RPM packages being repackaged in format Flatpak. Okay, so the only possibility is to install from FlatHub, which is okay. Let's install. The same thing is going to be probably valid for this Flatpak. So let's go to FlatHub, search for code, Visual Studio Code, by Microsoft Corporation but unverified. Links. There's a manifest GitHub project, the file with extension YAML. Let's see what file is being downloaded to generate this Flatpak. Linux deb x64, Linux deb ARM64, so it supports two CPU architectures, AR64 and x86_64. The file is named code.deb, so the same thing. The official Microsoft deb package for Ubuntu 22.04, and coming from the official Microsoft deb online repository. And then this large deb is being unpacked. Additional files are being added, put on top of Electron Free Desktop SDK, given access to network, the host file system, probably most of the files on my file system, dbus entry points, let's open the two software packages, open Visual Studio Code. We can open it from the App Store, from software, or we can open it from the Start menu, from here. And Google Chrome is here. Don't make it a default web browser. Okay, there's additional limitations in the Flatpak from FlatHub for Google Chrome for Visual Studio Code. It says that is running inside the container will not be able to access the C++ compilers, the Python interpreters, etc. on your computer, so from /usr. I'm not sure if that's the case, but probably. If you want to run executables or start processes from executables which do not exist inside of the sandbox, you need to use this command line host -spawn. You need to edit the integrated terminal, which is control backtick, this guy. If you want to use bash from /usr/bin/bash, not the bash that's inside the Flatpak sandbox, the Flatpak container. Inside the Flatpak container, there's GCC, Python, and a standard development environment already. Okay, so this seems to be a limitation of the Flatpak for Visual Studio Code, a limitation that does not exist for the snap for Visual Studio Code. That snap is of type classic, can do anything, doesn't really have a sandbox, or it's not really running inside of a container. So I would prefer on Ubuntu 25.04 to install Visual Studio Code from the snap store, not from FlatHub. Okay, let's look a bit at the default experience in GNOME on the two operating systems. So Ubuntu has this additional toolbar with minimized and pinned applications that the upstream GNOME does not have, and therefore Fedora does not have. Fedora tries to respect the upstream GNOME as much as possible. This is the Start menu, the list of installed applications. The icon theming is different. Look at the icon for clocks or for calculator, for GNOME calculator, this versus this one. The fonts are different, both font family and font size, and it's bolder on Fedora versus Ubuntu. Again, the color theme is different, the color scheme. This color, the orangish color for highlight in GTK widgets for Ubuntu, and this blue one for GTK4 Adwaita, GTK3 for Fedora 42 and the upstream GNOME. These fonts are not bold, these are. The D looks different. This is the D is missing a pixel in here, so it's totally different. Different font family. This is probably the Ubuntu fonts. And this is the default GNOME fonts. Okay, different app stores, the settings application has different icons, this one versus this one, different icon themes. These icons are bold, these are not. The icon for network is different. This one looks like an icon for a database that's attached to network or network attached storage, whereas this is like a box connected to a network. Okay, the theme in general is pretty similar, apart from the color scheme and font family and font sizes and the fact that fonts are bold here and not here. The mouse cursor theme is the same. Yeah, very similar operating systems in the sense that they use GNOME, a pretty recent version of GNOME Shell with similar applications, but a bit of a different theming in Ubuntu, and then additional quality of life enhancements in Ubuntu. You have the minimize button, maximize restore button that you don't have on Fedora, and also you can immediately see the running applications, the minimized applications, the pinned applications, the start menu, because of this additional panel on the left of your screen in Ubuntu. There's also icons on the desktop in GNOME. Okay, so that was it. Very important operating systems, Ubuntu 25.04, Fedora 42, are going to be released in a couple of weeks. Now is the best time to get involved and test these two betas. Report any issues that you find such that the final release version is working as correctly as possible. Thank you.